Hi everyone and welcome for this third part for painting Ghazghull Thraka. This time we are going to focus on the head and I'm going to use a lot of different color. As you can see, different kind of green, some blue, some red, and a lot of different color to give some different kind of tone into the skin. So Ghazghull is a green skin, but we are going to use some different kind of skin to give more deep effect to these miniatures. At the beginning I'm going to use middle green from Prince August just to push my base on all the skin. As you can see, I make some mistake because the hub of the head is in non-metallic metal, but I'm going to make some gray just to clean that part, and after I come back with some black from whole color just to push my shadow into my non-metallic metal part, and that's going to help me a lot to create some distinction between the skin part and the non-metallic metal part. With the black I continue to paint the teeth just to push this in a very different way. You are going to see we are going just to push some highlights on the teeth at the head. When I'm with black I continue to push my shadow. You can see that on the scales I push a little bit black on some few parts, and now just to make some lining into my non-metallic part I'm going to push my black color. Take care about having a very strong dilution to have something we are going to be more easily to push and to create contrast and nice transition. So now with some Mephisto red I'm going to push some small parts like the tongue. I hope it's the good word. And the shadow is going to pushing with some dark angel green. As you can see, I always focus on some few parts and preserve my basic color. So the middle green I already push in the large faces. Every time I come with my brush I'm going to reach 30% on the previous surfaces, and step by step I'm going to have a smaller and smaller surfaces. Now with some mercury blue I'm going to give some tone into some few parts of the face, basically on the front of the face, for example the lips and the nose and some few and small parts. And now with some light flesh from Prince August mixed with my mercury blue I'm going to push my highlights on this part. You are going to see during this tutorial it's a little bit different than the previous one and the classical tutorial. I'm going to make a part and another part and come back, and it's always the same. When I want a better result a lot of time I'm going to using a different way to paint. It's not necessary basically linearly, just for example the red the skin and after the non-metallic metal, but a lot of time I switch between the two different elements to try a nice balance of color between the two different elements. I come back with some warlock purple from Army Painter. I use this color just to push a little bit how I can say that, to have a more strong color, because my previous color was a little bit too white and I need something more saturated. So I push this between my shadow and my highlight. You are going to see the warlock purple is the Army Painter color, so it's not very covering, so you can easily make your transition. Now with some white I'm come back on the non-metallic metal to push my contrast a lot Remember, on the non-metallic metal, the big difference is the contrast. You need to have white just against black, and you will have a nice non-metallic metal. It's totally in opposition to the treatment of skin. For the skin, you are going to find some smoothness into your color. For the non-metallic metal is literally completely different. You just need to have very strong, very strong contrast. So that's why I am going to use some white and some black to push my contrast. Take care about your lining, always having on every edges some white and in every recesses some black to create this non-metallic metal effect. I come back with a little bit of Warlock purple and a lot of white just to push a little bit more my highlight on the face. As you can see, more I'm going to paint, less I'm going to have paint on my brush, and that just to push some very small line and point on some few points. Now with some black I'm going to push again my contrast on every part, and I'm going to go into the recesses to create some distinction and some lining between my different elements. Remember that it takes me something like 3 hours to paint this head, so take your time and go step by step. Now I come back with my first green, so the middle green from Prince August, and I push again this green on every part who don't take the Warlock purple. Just to be sure we are going to see again this basical green, and to have a better transition between my different color. You always need to have some paint who have the consistency of milk, just to have an idea about, and remove a lot of your paint, and step by step you will push your color in the good direction to have your transition pretty clean. Now again with some dark angel green I come back, and I always try to have a better and better transition between my different color. So this time I focus into the shadow just to create a better transition between my different elements. Once again, that's just some few points, but that make a big difference, because step by step it's going to be more and more contrasted. With some mood green now, I'm going to push again my highlights on the skin part, always trying to don't touch the more red part of the head, so the face, but just pushing my red all around to be sure I'm going to have nice transition on all these elements. More I'm going to paint, more it's going to be just some few points I'm going to tap with my brush to push my highlight. Now I come back with a little bit red to put some point of white on my face, and again pushing a little bit more my highlight on every part. By the way, I'm going to push a little bit white in the eyes. That will be important for the next step. I come back with a mix between Warlock purple and just a little bit white for the parts between my teeth and the face. And now with white directly I'm going to make some line just to push more contrasts on this part. I just make some few line and some few points at the end of teeth. And now again on the non-metallic metal I'm going to push my contrasts. if you are not sure about how to do a non-metallic metal, you just have to put your miniatures just under the light, and you are going to see the different reflection of light and trying to make the same. Now I put some Mephisto red on the lens. And with some black I'm going to put the eyes, just some few points of black, and I'm going to have a more thin line of white into the teeth. Again, with some black I'm going to push again my contrast on all the parts in non-metallic metal. Remember, to have a nice non-metallic metal you need to have strong contrast between the different elements, and the black and white need to be very approach. Now with some white I'm going to redefine a little bit the eyes, just to put 1 point of white all around my black line for eyes. And now I continue just to push some point of white to pushing again my contrast into my non-metallic metal. Remember, it's always better to have different layer of white to have at the end a strong contrast. Now with some trolls layer I'm going to push on the lens the highlight, and now I'm mixing some trolls layer and white to push again the highlight into the lens. At the end I'm just going to put a point of white in opposites to the highlight into the black part, just to have something like a reflection of light in the lens. I come back with some Mephisto red into the eyes, into the lens, and in some few points to pushing more contrast and more deep effect. The red is a complementary color of the green, so it's going to give always a deep effect when you use red to push shadow into green part, or green to push shadow into red part. Now with some Japanese uniform from Prince Auguste I'm going to base all the parts, all the different cable, to have something totally clean. It's always the paint I use first when I want to have something in yellow, because it's a very covering color and you always can put it, even if it's black, you can have a very strong yellow just by pushing this one first. So now with some micro-edge blue I'm going to push again my shadow into the lens and a little bit on the face. It's take me more than 3 hours or something similar to 3 hours. So take your time when you paint, and step by step you will see the result. I base in micro-edge blue some cable just to have some distinction, and into the head I'm going to push some blue on the lips too, just to create more carnation into the skin part. Now I mix a little bit micro-edge blue and white, just to pushing more my highlight into the different cable. And step by step I'm going to add more and more white and focus on just some few lines to push my highlight. If you don't see the previous tutorial about Ghazghull Thraka, you can see there are two previous parts I show how I do the non-metallic metal, different kind of non-metallic metal, and different kind of effects like chest board effect on the armor and some kind of line like that on different part. Now with some black I'm going to make the different line. Don't worry if your different line is not perfect, you can always come back with the yellow we used to have more similar line at the end. So now with some matte yellow, when your line is fixed, you can come back and push a little bit more your highlights on some few parts. Now again with some white I'm going to push a little bit more highlight on some few parts. The head is pretty finished, but as you can see I'm going to push some other source lightning on the head, just because he have some light into the armor he have. So I'm going to push some red pyrrole from Liquitex, it's ink from Liquitex, and I push that with my airbrush. I just make it slowly, just to don't remove all the paints on the face, but just to push a little bit more highlight in red from the down. And now just with some Trolls Layer Orange I'm going to push some highlights. Always have in mind that the light come from the down of the piece, so I'm going to push this highlight more from the down, and that's going to give more deep effects on the miniatures. And now with some red pyrrole, the same I use for my airbrush, this time very diluted, I'm going to push some layer to have a better transition all around this part. And now once again with some Trolls Layer Orange I'm going to make the same kind of things into the armor, just to show the light come from this part. After that I will finish all the miniatures, and I fix them all together just to see what he look like. As you can see, I have again 2 different tutorials to do, so you can subscribe to be sure to don't miss the next tutorial for Ghazghull. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram to see my work, and you can support me on Patreon if you want more content like that, and if you want to share with me into a private group on Facebook your work, so I can make you some feedback and we can step by step have a better result together. Thanks again for watching and see you soon. Bye bye.